During 1985, the Western region of British Rail celebrated the 150th anniversary of the founding of the Great Western Railway. The actual anniversary celebrated was the passing of the Act of Parliament authorising the railway to be built on August the 31st, 1835, the railway not opening to traffic until 1838. The engineer for the Great Western was Isambard Kingdom Brunel, a legendary Victorian figure who was also responsible for a number of other railways. The South Devon Railway was one of these, and its main line along the sea coast was the setting for a number of steam specials, which are covered in the final part of this commemorative programme. The train on the 8th of September was worked north past Dawlish by the two restored castles, Clun and Rhysluin. In addition to steam specials, the Western region organised lectures, a travelling exhibition train, local events, locomotive namings, open days and publications, with a view to emphasising aspects of the modern railway by reviewing its past. As for previous railway anniversaries, a replica locomotive was built. For GW 150, the replica was of a Gooch Express locomotive, Iron Duke. It first appeared on a demonstration track in Hyde Park in April, thereafter being shown at various sites on a well wagon. Early signalling used the disc and crossbar system, a replica of which has been installed at Didcot Railway Centre. Brunel specified a non-standard track gauge for the Great Western, 7 foot and 1/4 inch, known as broad gauge. At Didcot, the GWS has assembled replica mixed broad and standard gauged sidings, together with the transfer shed, which formerly stood west of Didcot Station. The Iron Duke replica was based on the mechanical parts of an Austerity 060 tank and, together with the 2 newly constructed passenger vehicles, again appeared in London at the Old Oak Common Open Day in September. The final appearance was at the NRM, together with another replica, the Rocket, and the last steam locomotive for BR, Evening Star. At Didcot, the GWS has assembled a fine collection of Great Western locomotives and artefacts. The educational aspects of the collection receive high priority, and a special GW 150 fortnight in early June set the pace for subsequent events. A feature of railway operations until the last decade was the travelling post office. In the early hours of the mornings, these trains transferred mail bags on the move, and visiting locomotive Blue Peter illustrates the action of these. A number of locomotives visited Didcot in June, Hawksworth Pannier 9466 from Quainton Road being seen here in use as shed pilot, as locomotives are prepared for the day. LMS 8F number 8431 from the Worth Valley was built in 1944 at Swindon to a design by Stanier, himself an ex-Great Western man. During its stay at Didcot, 9466 masqueraded as its long-withdrawn sister 9404, as it had been a requirement of the subsequently cancelled Swindon exhibition for all locomotives to appear in authentic liveries. 9466 was a BR-built machine, but has been painted in GWR colours. 9404 was a GW-built locomotive. Whilst the pannier shunted two of Didcot's resident locomotives, the 8F was refuelled at the coaling stage, situated between the shed and BR's Didcot marshalling yard. Such operations were a necessary part of the preparation of a steam locomotive for its day's work. Class 5600 tanks were built for use in the South Wales coalfields, 6619 visiting from the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. French Nord 460 acts as a reminder of the De Glen Atlantics owned by the GWR in the early part of the century, this locomotive being based at Peterborough on the Nene Valley Railway.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I'm sure you will have seen from the forward sheet that was issued to you with your Didcot guide as you came into the site.
A further South Wales coalfield locomotive type was the Collet 280 tank, the Great Central's 5224 representing the class at Didcot. The centre has assembled a representative rake of GW and private owner wagons, seen being shunted by the resident Collet Autotank 1466. At the back of the shed, locomotives are turned on the depot's turntable. Heavy freight locomotive 3822 wasn't ready for the June celebrations and is seen during September. Alongside the shed, locomotives out of steam are stored, whilst inside work continues on the restoration of 6998 Burton Agnes Hall. Finally, we see the depot's flagship 5051 Dryslewin Castle coming off shed prior to working on a mainline train from Didcot to Oxford and return. .5051 worked the first of a series of trains during August from Swindon to Gloucester, but this was a private charter and the first public working was by 4930 Hagley Hall from the Severn Valley. Gloucester was the base for these operations, since the announcement of the closure of Swindon Works meant that Swindon couldn't be used. 4930s seen passing Gloucester TMD, where all servicing and stabling was carried out. Sapperton Bank was the most formidable and the most interesting part of the route, the hall being seen on the second morning of operations, climbing past Frampton Mansell. The third locomotive to feature was Hinton Manor, seen shortly after leaving Swindon on the single line section. Returning south, the man is seen climbing up to Stonehouse. At Kemble, on afternoon workings, up trains waited to cross a service DMU. Morning services also crossed a DMU at Kemble, and the King is seen at speed on the 31st of August. Ten days earlier, number 6000 was worked more easily up the bank, prior to a stop at Stroud on the afternoon train. Alternating with King George V was the other double-chimneyed GW Express locomotive, Clun Castle, also seen at Stroud. Stroud lies at the northwest end of the Golden Valley, through which the line passes prior to the climb to Sapperton Tunnel. BR 460-75069 from the Severn Valley is seen commencing the attack on Sapperton. To the BR Standard fell the honour of hauling the final Swindon-Gloucester train, seen arriving at Swindon on the evening of the 1st of September. A large proportion of goods and merchandise traffic has always been worked at night, after main lines have been cleared of passenger traffic. On the 9th of September 1985, such a goods train departed from Kidderminster. Late-night passengers at Worcester Foregate Street were surprised to see a steam goods train running wrong road on the bi-directional line. To many people, the running of this loose-coupled goods train provided by the Severn Valley and running to Newport was the highlight of GW 150, the 28 having only completed its overhaul the previous day. The train stabled overnight at Hereford and then ran to Newport at dawn. .2857 and 7029 Clun Castle were used in connection with a rail freight spectacular at Newport Station, sponsored by Samuel Whitbread's Brewers. The locomotives were placed on display in the down platform and attached to a selection of current stock. An exhibition wagon showed rail freight past and present, and visitors were able to inspect the various types of wagons in use at present on BR, against a background of continuous heavy freight through the station. GW locomotive heritage was represented by some magnificent large-scale models from Newport and District modelers. Guests of the sponsors were taken for a Pullman journey to Gloucester and back by Clun Castle, whilst the 28 was watered at the station prior to working light to the west to collect its demonstration train. After Clun Castle had returned the delegates, 2857 ran its goods train through Newport Station, alongside a BR rail freight demonstration train, and then, in the early evening, set off to the east to return to Kidderminster via Gloucester. After watering at Seven Tunnel Junction and dropping its fitted head of BR wagons, the evening sun illuminates the returning goods climbing past Caldecott. final daylight hours saw the goods train bowling merrily along through farmlands south of Lydney. The final hours of the run were in darkness again, Gloucester being a water stop prior to the mainline run back to Kidderminster to complete a truly memorable 24 hours. For our archive section, we're again indebted to Dick Griffiths of Sterling Video. Their programmes go right back to the 1930s with the films of J.F. Traxler. Steel Highway is real enthusiast material, shot mainly from the train itself. .30 Limited tells the story of the Cornish Riviera Express, shot mainly from the footplate when photographic conditions were far from ideal. The locomotive is the now preserved 6024 King Edward I, a superb coincidence considering that Joe Traxler filmed this over 50 years ago. Whilst shot mainly on the train or footplate, the programme does contain some superb snippets like these 1938 colour views. Standard 8mm film-based videos have a somewhat dubious reputation in today's market. Sterling Video's Western Steam Memories Volume 1 is proof that 8mm film can be a suitable basis for archive railway videos. Over half of this one-hour programme comes from the film library of author Brian Hollingsworth. This scene is from Richard Greenwood's section Travelling West. Author and former Western engineman Colin Jacks also made his films available. Dick Griffiths has been entrusted with the production on video of the legendary 16mm films of Pat Whitehouse and John Adams. One of the Western highlights in this, the first volume, is some 9 minutes featuring the Bewdley district in August 1959. Similarly, Volume 2 features a full 9 minutes of Western motive power. The third of Sterling Video's railway roundabout-based programmes is Pure Western. Produced in association with the National Railway Museum and entitled Western Steam: The Final Years. Many of the most famous Whitehouse Adams films are featured, including Two Duke Dogs to Barmouth. The narrator is David Jenkinson.
Their destination was the Tallis-Lynn Railway on the annual general meeting special, but the engines themselves were bound for Barmouth, as we shall see. So off we go, first stop Welshpool. On arrival at Welshpool, a somewhat ritual observance of the engines is duly carried out by the passengers. It was a rather rare scene in those days, but in latter years it has become the common accompaniment of any steam-hauled rail tour.
Another famous film is The Bristolian in the Days of Steam, featuring 7018 Drisluin Castle.
And by now, conditions on the footplate are probably getting quite exciting. Inspector Hancock's laconic report simply says, engine in good mechanical condition, handled in a satisfactory manner by both driver and fireman. Maximum speed was between Badminton and Wootton Bassett at Little Somerford, when over 100 miles an hour was attained. This is what it looked like from the footplate. While this is how it may have looked from the line side, although on this occasion, a Friday, the engine was a king, not a castle. All too soon it is nearly over. Passengers make ready to alight and the guard makes his last entries in the log as the train slows down and gently rolls towards its destination at Paddington. It's been a good run. In spite of 5 minutes of permanent way slacks, the train is still 7 minutes early and has averaged 72 miles per hour. And has made a net gain of 12 minutes on the 105-minute schedule. So who cares if the external shot of the arrival happens to be of a different castle? The cameraman can't be in two places at once. No wonder the crew look pleased with themselves. They have every reason to be. And another 55...
Western Steam The Final Years has more than just the main lines.
On this particular occasion, it is hauling what might be described as a highly ecumenical train, composed of LMS and LNER carriages. Behind a Great Western engine in Devon? How could this possibly have happened? Well, no matter. At Kingsbridge itself, a very brief glimpse of an original 4500 type leads to a most evocative sequence involving number 5573 of the later series. How often we observe these things and yet how little we took in. Well, maybe these pictures will help.
Time only permits the briefest glimpses of this superb material. Our Western Archives section concludes with the close of Western Steam The Final Years.
And after that, all that then seemed to remain was the breaker's torch, as the old order changed in the mid-1960s. But in the event, it did not quite turn out that way, and we could all breathe again. The Great Western has, in the fullness of time, turned out to be 150 years young. So we celebrate its anniversary, and why not indeed?
The Western region organised a number of open days at its TMDs, traction maintenance depots, throughout the year. In July and September, a representative selection of current and preserved stock was seen in three corners of the old GW Empire: South Wales, the West Country and London. Locomotive namings took place throughout the year, and 4 Class 47s were painted in Brunswick green, as had number 50007 in 1984. Unique to Cardiff was the visit of the celebrity Class 25 Tamworth Castle, preserved Class 44 Great Gable, and 97201 from Derby. The GWS helped power this trolley, used to race 5051 in the famous Lara yard. The prototype HST power car was restored in 1985 for display at the NRM and made its first appearance at Lara. The Western's dalliance with diesel hydraulic traction was illustrated by static display, both at Lara and at Old Oak Common. Old Oak provided the only public viewing of all the green-painted diesels in one place. These were supplemented by the sole remaining capital stock Class 40 D200. As usual, steam demonstrations were represented by yard shuttles, the King appropriately appearing in London. GW preservation is to be seen around the country and isn't confined to locomotives. At Didcot, a reproduction branch line halt has been created. The centre boasts many carriages and wagons in its stock, in addition to numerous small artefacts. At Bewdley, the station fittings are true period pieces, whilst the Severn Valley Railway boasts complete sets of GW coaching stock. The Western region prepared a travelling exhibition train featuring, amongst others, Isambard Kingdom Brunel himself. The great man will now allow us to benefit from his great experience.
Good day to you. Isambard Kingdom Brunel, the engineer, at your service. I've come back for the day to tell you some of my views on engineering. I am, of course, a very single-minded man with an all-round ability. When faced with a challenge such as the engineering of the Great Western Railway, which, incidentally, celebrates its 150th year from conception in 1985, I dealt with every detail, from the engine, rolling stock, rails, and even stations. And even when the extensions of the railway came up against great natural barriers, I built the mighty bridges, drove the long tunnels, and did it on a scale never before seen in Europe. And what's more, did it so successfully that they are even now in full working order. When it came to providing our passengers with regular and reliable transportation, clear across the great and unpredictable Atlantic Ocean to the United States of America, I built the most revolutionary ship that has ever been conceived, and helped to make Britain great and world leaders with ship designs which proved to be the forerunner of the modern ships of today. I am truly amazed at the quality and design that your modern technology produces, which I can see here today, and which must have taken many laborious hours to achieve. A perfectionist, I succumbed to a responsibility I placed on myself, which eventually proved too much. Perhaps, had I the advantage of some of your modern aids, such as data processing and handling, the miracle of electronics, and the variety of marvelous materials available today, they may well have prevented my disillusionment and untimely demise. I had the glory and the claim as well as the discipline. And now, history recognizes my immortality as the greatest engineer of my time. I realize, of course, that there is little chance for one man ever to achieve such recognition today. This is now given to the professional teams of dedicated men and women who fashion the mighty enterprises of your future. I bid you good day, and wish you Godspeed in your endeavors.
The exhibition train appeared at numerous locations and was, on a number of occasions, steam-hauled. It's seen here en route from Hereford to Newport, hauled by the honorary Great Western locomotive 92-220 Evening Star in the early hours of the 29th of June. The Birmingham Railway Museum at Tyseley held an open weekend on the 8th and 9th of June. Special trains were run on both days to Stratford-on-Avon, hauled by the depot's Express 460s Colliper and Cluncastle. Unfortunately, Colliper failed on the first run and Clun ran all the remaining trains. The depot hosted a number of visiting locomotives, the ex-Taff Vale Railway 062 tank number 28, becoming a Great Western locomotive from grouping in 1922. The museum's now received a grant to assist in the restoration of a further castle, number 5080 Defiant, which will be restored for main line working. Defiant will provide a contrast as a single chimney locomotive to the double chimneyed Clun Castle. Steam in the West Country in 1985 was widespread, from South Wales to South Devon. In connection with Landor Depot, Swansea, Open Day, 6960 Raveningham Hall ran 6 return trips to Carmarthen. Most celebrated of all Great Western locomotives, King George V included, is most probably City of Truro. She was restored to mainline running condition at the Severn Valley, and after many delays eventually ran a rail tour from Gloucester to Newport in conditions of great secrecy. City of Truro was booked to make the first steam tour into Cornwall and to its namesake city, but in the event, Clun Castle substituted. Greatest interest surrounded Bristol-Plymouth and return workings, in all cases double-headed. The first journey from Bristol to Plymouth proved disastrous, King George V and Hinton Manor failing with hot boxes. The return trip behind a hastily summoned Hagley Hall and Hinton Manor, repaired overnight, proved that eastbound workings could succeed. Only one further westbound journey was tried with Hagley Hall and Drisluin Castle. This also failed due to steaming problems on the Hall, exacerbated by poor coal supplies. end came on Dainton Bank, and a following Class 50 was summoned to push the train over the summit to Totnes, where it terminated. All remaining trips were eastbound, the two in September being notable for double heading by the castles Clun and Drisluin. Both journeys passed without incident, the locomotives running perfectly.
See him pull up on the platform this year. Sure. He's in crawlers, in white Peter. He don't really not know them. I know it's a beautiful green one, that last big wire. That he broke down. There's one. Going right down to it. Come on, lift up the big wire.
A rerun of the ill-fated Easter journey was made on October the 27th, and this time Hinton Manor and King George V gave a worthy display to end the GW 150 celebrations. Variety was provided for the second part of the journey, as the manor was coupled inside the King in the traditional GW pilot engine position. Whiteball was no problem for the King and the manor, as GW 150